Today we have an innovation that we have never seen before. We are going to have a panel discussion on a presentation that has been already made and has already been posted on YouTube. And all the people here have, I hope, seen that presentation. I made that presentation. It's on what I called as non-official India development goals. There are 3 such goals in my mind. That was a discussion of what we can call as NIDG 1. That's the economic goal for India. The second goal is more on quality of life and governance. And the third goal is international. So the first goal is the most important one for economics. And let's have a discussion on that. So without more discussion, let's start. And the first speaker is Upanita. Please introduce yourself and let's go.
Hello everyone, I'm Upanita Barrman and I'm currently an MSc Economics and Strategy student at Imperial College London in the Imperial College Business School. First of all, thank you Dr. Mathur and everyone here for making me a part of this panel discussion, and it's been an amazing journey with you, Dr. Mathur, before also in one of my Vidpeds, and I'm glad to be here again. So without further ado, I will start. Based on what you described, Dr. Mathur, in one of your presentations on India's non-official development goals, I personally am a person who's worked as a founding president at the National Service Scheme of my university back in Calcutta in India at Presidency University, and where I used to work with different slums all across Calcutta, and we used to visit there and work one-on-one with the people. So there are 5 main goals that I would like to just mention. They create millions of reasonable paying jobs for young people of all skill levels, attain sustained high real GDP growth rate given the high per capita growth rate, keep economic inequalities in check and promote equality of opportunity for all, provide targeted subsidies as needed and not just followed by the subsidy raj. And number 5, try to create a climate change and a more green environment for everyone. So as I discussed previously, I used to visit this slum in a near which was near to my university, and we used to kind of conduct different health camps, training sessions, cleaning sessions, etc. Over there, you would be shocked to find out that we used to interact with people, and they used to tell us how there was only one washroom which the entire slum used to use, and there were no facilities, no proper health camps, no proper access to hospitals, and whenever they used to approach the local government or the local councillor, they were just denied. Whereas when we used to go to the local councillor, they were just very happy with everything that was going on, and apparently they had implemented everything, and all the people apparently were just lying. So what we did, without just we tried to like bridge the gap between the policy makers and the policy that was supposed to be implemented. So what we did, we used to conduct these regular sessions like health camps in collaboration with different non-governmental organizations and hospitals, and we used to find out what were the problems they were facing. Like some people had arthritis, some people had really bad like eyesight, the kids had nutritional deficiencies. And then what we did, we used to like kind of we had received a lot of funding from the government, from the central government, like under the NSS scheme, and we used to utilize those to sponsor their medicines. And like in one of the schools we visited, and it was like one old woman who was running the school voluntarily without any income or any support from anyone, and she employed 2 women like of probably my age, and their fees were their wage was about like 1,500 rupees per month, which is like really, really less for anyone to survive on.
Right.
And like there was no support from the government. And what what she told us, that she really, really needed help to run that school, because otherwise these children would just drop out. So without further ado, what we did is that we, as a group of volunteers, we volunteered, and we started taking classes with the students, and we used to do small exercises so that we could at least help them, and so that they do not drop out of the school midway, which was like a very common tendency over there. And apart from that, we used to conduct a lot of surveys so that we could understand where the problem is actually lying in. Because when we went to the IS officers and the policymakers, apparently they were really shocked because they were putting a lot of effort and a lot of funds in doing everything for these slums and underdeveloped regions, but then things were just not reaching to them. So there was some problem which is there in the middle, which apparently everyone right now knows. Like, there are corruption problems, there are inequality, there are other institutional problems which are still there. But we as individuals, instead of just complaining, or probably not like just complaining about the existing scenario or the status quo, what we did, we tried to bridge the gap between these two stakeholders, so that like there could be effective implementation, and lot of the, and like eventually, like the problem of like wasting of so much of funds, and then probably like ineffective communication and lack of information would actually reduce, and so that we could at least take a minor step in reducing such problems. Because I, as a citizen of India, I presume that if every one of us could at least give 10% of what we do in our daily lives, maybe 2 hours per week, in supporting these people, or probably like probably trying to bridge the inequalities, I think all the inequalities that the existing scenario that India is facing, or probably other like major issues that have become such important goals that India needs to fulfill, they could easily be kind of reduced. And yeah, so that's it.
Okay, I will just quickly respond. The discussion come later. Upanita, first, thank you so much. Second, the school dropout, that's actually covered in my goal under equality of opportunity. Right? Equality of opportunity means that people should get a good education. Its overall view, it includes health, education, and other means to get equality of opportunity. It's not a term that's often discussed. Equality of opportunity, it's a term that's mainly missing even from economics textbooks, but it's something, again, it's missing partly because Western countries think that they already have some semblance of equality of opportunity. So the inequality, their focus is on income and on wealth, but in India, we need to focus on equality of opportunity. And if you read my core economics book on inequality, the last section is about equality of opportunity or inequality. We don't have any way to measure it, but that's where that is. The rest of it, quite a bit of what you're talking about is under my goal 2, quality of life. So it's not there in the economic goal. The economic goal is about raising incomes. What you have written, what you talked about there is in my goal 2, which is quality of life. Okay, so, but the rest of the point, I'll wait for comments from others, and it's the panel discussion, but just those 2 brief replies. Okay, so Parama, you're next.
Thank you, sir, for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful discussion. I am Parama from Calcutta. I am working as an analyst in the market mix modeling domain in Nielsen. I've done my bachelor's in economics from Loreto College, Kolkata, and then pursued master's in economics from University of Calcutta. So the first point that you had mentioned about jobs and job creation in India, it is about reasonably paying jobs for people of all skill level. That's the key thing. That means it is not only important to work towards building a society that is prosperous, but also equitable. And when we speak of new opportunities, an important question arises that who is able to take advantage of these new opportunities and who is not. Growth should happen in a fashion that even the marginalized groups are able to catch up with the more advantaged groups. And for that, we need job opportunities for the for everyone. And for that, I feel the manufacturing sector needs to be boosted so that wherever there is a gap, wherever the agriculture sector are not being able to absorb the people, the manufacturing sector helps them to provide some job. The MSME sector can also act as a natural engine of growth. In fact, in the G20 declaration, it was acknowledged by the government that a big push the MSME sector is needed by simplifying the regulatory process and by enhancing the access to affordable capital, because MSME can play a huge role to socio-economic transformation by driving innovation and by creating employment. And I guess for India to grow from a developing to developed nation, we are targeting an annual growth rate of at least more than 8% for the next 25 years. And for that, employment needs to be made for the growing population. I was reading a report by the World Bank that says that every 1% increase in employment leads to 0.6% increase in GDP growth. And that makes sense, as more people would have jobs, there would be an increase in the demand for groups, which would lead to expansion of businesses and creation of jobs. So basically, this is a vicious cycle. Coming to the point of subsidies, yes, subsidies are necessary to uplift the deprived section of the society, but the program must provide a clear rationale for investing in basic amenities to help sustain economic growth, as there exists a line between subsidies for welfare and then freebies, because there is a trend that right before elections, Indian voters are lured with, freebies, but that ultimately leads to unnecessary drain of public spending, leading to public deficit. So coming to the last point, that we need to keep local and global pollution in check. Yes, absolutely agreed. That is a need of the hour. But I also firmly believe to the point that we as a society has a huge role to play in it. We should be self-disciplined, and for that, I feel somewhere education about climate change, deforestation, and environmental issues has a role to play. It should be imbibed within us from a very young age to do our bit. Other than that, obviously, more effective I feel more cost-effective, sustainable solutions should be brought in place for smoother transition into the green economy. Otherwise, during winter, we will keep hearing or seeing the headlines about Delhi's poor air condition. So new technology that is cost-effective is necessary to motivate people to bring about a change in their lifestyle. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Upanita. I'm not going to respond because you have not said something that is directly something I have to add from my goal. So let's have Akash, he's next.
Also, it's nothing controversial also.
Yeah, so anyway,
it was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's not my point is I don't want to interrupt the flow from the young people, and then Gurushri and I can talk. Okay, so Akash, please.
So hello everyone, I am Akash Sen, a third year undergrad student from Azad College, Calcutta University. So first of all, I would like to say that I broadly agree with most of the points which sir had made in your earlier presentation. And I would just like to add and briefly elaborate some other points which I feel is important. So whenever we are thinking of a long-term plan or vision, the first thing on which we should emphasize is to build a strong foundation and have the basics sorted out. Like this holds true for literally everything. Like it's for our academics also. And even when we're talking about economic development of a nation, especially when we're having a goal of 2047, almost a 25 years goal in mind, then we must have our basics sorted out. And while talking about the basics sorted out for a nation like India, the two most important things which I feel is right now most important is first is education and second is healthcare. India is a vast country with a vast population, and to address the educational reforms and educational issues, I do think that the basic education needs to be universal for all. for everyone. Basic education needs to be for everyone, and the education reforms which can be introduced by the government can be of twofold for now. So firstly, we would have some vocational training or learning, which would be focused for at least some segments of the society. And that might be for a couple of years for now. And this will actually help to reduce the job market and reduce the unemployment situations and create a job market and give people the necessary resources which would help them to maintain a basic standard of living. And this actually it's aligned to your goal number 1, which you mentioned, creating a jobs for everyone. And secondly, which I feel is that we must build a strong tertiary education system also, planning to increase years of education for the long run, as technological upgradation would require more high-skilled laborers and not just semi-skilled or low-skilled workers. The expected increased digitalization of the economy and improved health and education services will also require upgraded human capital. And the learning methods which would be introduced should encourage lifelong learning, creativity, innovation, and foster some problem-solving skills. And only focusing on this, we can expect long-run progress for our nation, even beyond 2047. Like, we should not have only 2047 in mind. We can have bigger goals after 2047 comes, bigger agendas, bigger goals. And we must keep innovation at the center of our modernization and development agenda, with more spending on R&D and including techs and tools of cloud computing, big data, AI, and quantum computing, and so on. But the important thing is that all these high-tech and ambitious goals should be built step by step. We should not be taking any shortcut, like without building the basics, without giving the basic needs, we straight away go for AI and big things. That won't work. That would make a bubble, a hollow form of development, and we don't want that. And as I said before, besides basic education, health and nutrition is another must. We need an upgradation in our basic healthcare system and make it more accessible to the masses. And nutrition intake must also be carefully monitored. Sometimes even we see that even if people does have the monetary ability to take the necessary nutrition intake, they don't actually fulfill it. And we must stop this by spreading awareness and maybe having some subsidy schemes, which you mentioned in your point number 4 in your presentation. But what we do need to keep in mind here is that these subsidy schemes must be available to everyone. Like just now, Upanita also said that how in his research he found that the subsidy schemes and the government schemes were not made available to the common people, and we must ensure that it reaches the common masses. And for that, we need a decentralized form so that it reaches the masses. And another very important thing that we should focus, I feel, that is infrastructural development. Right now, India is kind of a stage where it definitely needs infrastructural development. It would mainly give us 2 benefits. The first benefit, it would be in the short run, we would be able to provide ample employment opportunities. And secondly, if that infrastructural development is done in a proper planned manner, then in the future also, we can flourish on that growth, on that development, the infrastructural development. Any plans by the government can be made very fluently if the infrastructural development is done in the proper way. But what we need to keep in mind here is that the plans and the goals and the ambitions which we are taking in terms of infrastructure must actually be feasible. It's not about just giving some fancy names to a project and making some extremely ambitious goals which may not be even fulfilled in the long run, or for example, we are making it like in 5 or 10 years we will be completing this goal, but after 5 or 10 years we are seeing that only 15 to 20% of the work is done, and it's taking a huge amount of money, and as a result of which the net return of that projects are getting very low. So we don't want that. We want proper planned and feasible infrastructural growth, and this infrastructural growth, I feel, should be connecting the Tier 1 cities with the Tier 2 cities also, because already the Tier 1 cities, there is a huge population pressure and so on, and we do need Tier 2 cities to step up here. We need the investment on the Tier 2 cities also. Foreign direct investment or domestic direct investment, they must come to the Tier 2 cities. And for that, we will need high-speed railways, better highways. And as I said, even if we are having highways and railways, these plans should be formed and should be made accessible to most of the people. It should not only be limited to a costly and luxurious mode of transport which is being made for the few. If that happens, then we will be deviating from our main goal of development. And other than these main 3 points, the other few points which I would like to mention is that we can spend more on research and development in terms of agriculture. Like recently, I heard that some of the students from IIT Kanpur had made a new technology in which they would be using drones for plantation, irrigation, and so on in the large village areas, agricultural areas in Kanpur and in Eastern UP. So that's kind of thing that we need to see more in the near future. And we also need to get financial stabilization in monetary terms also. And the economy should be, or at least try to be, a little bit prone to the fluctuations. Because when we're having a long-term plan in mind, if all of a sudden we get a big financial crunch or big fluctuation, then like things can get baffled, and we don't want that. So we need to have proper financial stability for a long term. And another thing that I feel is that at least for a couple of years, we should reduce the jobless growth. If we see the data, we will see that though India's GDP is growing, but another thing is which we are seeing is that we are seeing a jobless growth kind of scenario. And at least for a couple of years, this must be stopped. We need more employment. We need more money for the people, more power to the people, and that would only, increase the internal consumption, increase the demand, and would help in long-term progress of the nation. And also, we must strengthen the state-owned enterprises using incentive mechanisms in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities. And these are important. Like what is happening is that if some state-owned enterprise is not working very well, then we are just going on privatizing them. But that's not the solution. That can't be the solution. We have to find a way to make them more efficient. And always privatization can be the solution in some cases, but not always. We have to find some incentive mechanisms and make them more efficient. We have to make the household consumptions, increase the household consumption in the very basic level, in the very ground level. And that would, as I said, it would bring the demand more, attract more demand. More demand means more investment, and the cycle will go on and bring development to the nation. And for that, we have to also make life affordable in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities. That's very important. We are seeing that housing prices are rising, the rents are rising. Governments can put a check in that. They can have property taxes, or we can have rental controls, and this would actually help people to move from the tier 2 cities to the tier 3 cities to the tier 2 and tier 1 and so on, and would actually help in boosting growth. Another few things are a more decentralized form of economic planning or even political planning. We need a more bottom-up approach. As in a few moments back, it was also discussed that in the local bodies level, in the panchayat level, people are not actually, either they don't know what's happening to the masses, or they are not bothered to them. They are neglecting that. And this must be stopped. We have to take a bottom-up approach, and they should be given the economic power which they need for the development at their panchayat level or their local body level. And that's very important. And for lastly, I must include the point number 5 of your presentation, that is the environment, the pollution. Any policy, any development which we are planning must not come at the cost of environment degradation. We all are aware of what the consequences of this environment degradation can be, and I need not repeat them. We all know that, and we should keep them in mind. We must keep them in mind. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. Smit, you are next.
Yeah, surely. Let me know if I'm audible or not.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak, and let me introduce myself. I am Smit Veer. I have done my Masters in Economics from Gokul Institute of Politics and Economics in Pune, and post that I am working as a consultant at Fractal Analytics, working for a Fortune 500 company. So yeah, starting with all these points which I heard, those are fabulous points made by everyone, and I agree with all the points made in some of each other sense. Starting with the first point of job opportunities and employment, my first thing is that the minimum age criteria for any student to be admitted to the school back in the early days was 3 years of age, and now it has been changed to 4 years of age. So let's say if a person like me who has been admitted to school at the age of 3, who graduates at the age of 21, but now if a student who gets admitted to the age of 4 will generally graduate at the age of 22. What does this mean? This does mean that when he or she will be graduating at the age of 22, it means that the job opportunity will be open then. And at this particular moment, when we graduated, the job opportunities were being open at the age of 21. So that is the 1 year additional which the government has been taking up to additionally create more jobs. But now considering 2047, how many years are being left in 2047? There are hardly any years being left in the year 2047, and this is what I think. Why is the minimum age being sent back down to years 4 and not year 3 again? So this is what I feel in some sense the government has been doing. Secondly, considering improving GDP, as we discussed, is how India has skipped the manufacturing stage. And also has been pointed out by Akash when he was saying that we need strong foundations. But I want to ask one question, like, since India skipped the manufacturing stage, should we not enter the advanced manufacturing stage? Yes or no? I strongly feel that we should start entering the advanced manufacturing stage. If you remember in the last call, what we discussed is that we have amazing set of engineers, we have amazing strength of strong students who are working in foreign countries, and they somehow have been brainwashed to be working in foreign countries. And when big companies come to India and they want to invest in India and they want to open the job market, that's what they say, that we don't have amazing bunch of talent to work over here. But this is how our talent has been diversified to various countries. So that's where I say that we should, start working on the advanced manufacturing stage. We have amazing set of institutes, we have amazing set of students as well, and that's how these students will get jobs as to working here in the advanced manufacturing stage process, and that's how we'll also get world class jobs over here. Coming down to innovation, in terms of advanced manufacturing, I've seen Reliance Industries investing heavily in robotics and automation. And I also feel that we can come up with a national center for advanced manufacturing, something sort of that, to actually boost up the advanced manufacturing stage in India. And simultaneously, as Akash also mentioned, that we need to strongly invest in the research and development stage as well. So simultaneously, both pathways will be open. On one side, there will be job creation, and on the other side, advanced manufacturing, and the students will be getting good amount of job opportunities over here. Coming down towards the average pay, which the points both sir mentioned in the PPT as well, and according to the World Bank, the extreme poverty lives in India, and the average per capita earning is around 1,888 rupees per month. Now, this is really, really low, and if we set some limit for reasonable pay or average pay, it of course should be above that. But coming towards that point, also we have certain categories as to what factors should be considered. Of course, education, city, tier 1, tier 2, the family size, and what they are staying, and other such factors can be considered over here, as rightly mentioned in the PPT. And then, of course, comparing our growth rates with China. See, if we are only considering how the formula of growth has been derived and what the factors are entering into the particular growth formula, till that it is totally fine. But comparing our growth rate numbers with China, there are certain policies which were run in China which cannot be run in India. Firstly, India has a less centralized government than China. Of course, we all know what the policies of China are in terms of improving its economy, and India does not have a strong centralized government. We work on a local centralized government, and again, as Akash mentioned, that decentralization and understanding the problems of the masses as to what problems in terms of the block development. We have a block development officer naturally, which is the lowest post. And below that then comes the gram panchayat. So that is how India will be developing. So if we are talking about comparing directly with China, this is what we need to consider. Secondly, also while comparing to China had a good amount of infrastructure development during those days, but India as of now still doesn't have that amount of infrastructure development. So we'll naturally be focusing on that as well. Quickly coming down towards the inequalities point also, I would like to mention that India is one of the most unequal countries in the world, even after good amount of years of independence. So what in a general case scenario, if we just talk about income inequality, everyone knows that top 1% earns around 20% of the national income, and the bottom 50% will be earning around 10 to 15% of the national income. And I know Gini coefficient is not a good measure of inequality, but considering that we are still below the global average, it is a huge concern for us as well. And naturally, we should also not forget about social inequalities, which is a direct factor affecting income. Of course, we have social inclusion policies such as reservation in terms of education, but we should actually ask ourselves that are these policies actually adequate or not in terms of education, in terms of providing equal opportunity to everyone. And lastly, coming towards subsidies, okay, so India gives around 5 lakh crore of subsidies, and that is a good part of the budget already. But the problem with subsidies are they are not well targeted. Of course, we have DBTs in place, and we come to know how like the beneficiary is receiving the transfer. But now here the problem is not of the transfer, but of the database. I guess Param can agree with me on this point as to um, how the data has been collected on various modes. We know there are certain companies who actually collect the data and then disperse to various other companies to actually consume the data and run certain numbers on that, and we know how they are being collected. So in terms of that too, we can talk about this, and in terms of also this as to how the data for disbursing subsidies are being collected. And lastly, of course, greenhouse emissions. Everyone knows that the developed countries had, you know, actually undergone a lot amount of carbon emissions during their development. And when it comes to developing countries like us, they, of course, now the concern is all about climate change. And even on humanitarian grounds, everyone is considering not to produce good amount of carbon. And that is also what India is focusing around. So India is also the fourth largest investor in renewable energy, and it has been doing it on a good front. But as Subodh sir always mentions, that we just don't have to be good, but we also have to be hitting 4s and 6s. That is good amount of implementation everywhere. So yeah, that's what our concern is. We have solar, wind, hydroelectric, and everything just lined up. We just need good implementation. That will be my part, I guess.
Thank you, Smit. Samarth, please. Go ahead. We can't hear you. Samarth, please go ahead. Okay, we can wait for Gurushri to finish her phone call. Okay. Samarth, you are on mute now. Yeah, let's test your audio now. Let's see if we can hear you. No, it's very unclear. It's very unclear. It's very unclear. We can't, maybe you can log out and log back in, because right now we can't hear you at all. So thank you, Smit. That was very helpful. And we're just waiting for Samarth to rejoin to see if he can get a better audio to us. In the meantime, let me say that I think the experiment is working. You know, we have no idea of what it is like to have a presentation separately and discussion separately, but I think it is working. We are getting a good set of prepared responses, and certainly I'm happy. Okay. Maybe Samarth can't come back, so Gurushri, maybe we can just go ahead with you.
Oh, you're done with this with the other participants?
Well, Samarth has logged out, and I'm not sure whether he can log back in or we can hear it. So let's.
Okay.
There he is. Let's see. Maybe he can come back.
Okay. I did listen to I think you should consider me as not a panel specialist, but one of the people who have some comments to make. I did listen to your presentation, and I jotted down some things that you said, but I'm not sure what the purpose of this particular, I mean, is this a big scheme for economic development in India? This is your view, Subodh? Is that what is behind these goals? And
Yes,
so I was,
yes,
yes,
it is my
yes?
manifesto.
Okay.
It is my manifesto, and
Yeah.
I will produce a manifesto pamphlet or a booklet or whatever it is. But
Mhm.
it's a follow-up to my book in 2 years ago, India 2047. And this
Mhm.
that was a bit longer, and I think the time has come for me to write my manifesto in short. And
Okay.
so manifesto needs to have some structure rather than
Right.
analysis itself. So there's less
Right.
analysis here, more prescription, and that's a manifesto. So yeah, it is my manifesto.
But the principle, but then how does this manifesto relate to your idea of opportunity, particularly the index? I mean, I don't have many comments to say about the manifesto, because really I'm not very completely, I don't quite know what India's economic policies are right now and how they should be changing. And somehow I feel earlier they used to put out, I don't know, some kind of planning document. So we had some idea of this is what is going, the money is going. And nowadays I don't know where the planning, or where the, not planning even, but just a wide-ranging idea of where India's policies are heading. I don't know who puts it out. I mean, does Niti Aayog put it out? Or you pick it up from bits and pieces of information? So I don't want to comment on whether, for example, FDI is enough or not, because I don't know. Similarly, whether MSME, which is 30% of production, is the way to go or not, because I don't know. Whether tier 1 or 3 or 2 plus 3, I don't know. I'm sorry, but I'm not able to help you. On subsidy, Raj, I agree with you, because in general, I've studied subsidies, and that they should be, highly targeted and limited. Otherwise, I agree with you that if you spend all your tax revenues on subsidies, there isn't much left for things like infrastructure and quality of life that some of your students spoke about. So there I agree with you. Finally, the climate change is very tricky. I mean, because in fact, somebody has written a note on, should the World Bank focus more on climate change or poverty? And in India, what would you say? It's not clear what, because when many poor people are poor because they don't have the right kinds of fuels. They don't have, so that's a very, very tricky question. Tricky thing. So also there, I haven't read enough or understood enough to give you any comments on that. So I really don't have much. And skills, I agree. I mean, there too, I agree. I mean, I think there is huge inequality. There is the top guys who, if you have the money, you can go to the IITs and the Institutes of Science and get extremely private schools or good universities and get a very good education. But down at the bottom, schooling, as somebody was saying, is so poor. So even if there is technically full enrollment, the quality of education is so poor. So this is huge range. So those are my rather scattered comments, because I don't really have a view of how
All right.
India. Yes.
All right. So thank you.
One thing though, you wanted to talk about index to measure opportunity. Didn't you talk about that as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not index,
Well,
a variable. You can call it an index also, but it's just
a
it's a way
variable.
to measure it.
Yeah, that's a tricky one too. I mean, there are lots of indices about everything these days. It started, I think, with the poverty index, perhaps, but there's an index of transparency and various combinations of food insecurity and that and so I generally am uncomfortable with these indices or a complex variable, because I don't understand beyond two components what that index means or what that variable means. And so what you have in mind in constructing such an index, I mean, it would take a bit of everything we've talked about, becomes so complex. Opportunity in education, opportunities in good health, opportunities in jobs, all these going to going into one index. You just lose any information, any real information. That's my criticism. It is a criticism of your idea of the index.
Okay.
That's really all I have to say.
Okay, that's very helpful, Gurushri. Okay, let's have Samarth, and then I'm not going to respond yet. I'll let the whole discussion go through and let the panelists also respond to Gurushri's. And I'm here to listen mainly. And so, Samarth, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for having me here. A little about myself. My name is Samarth Khurana, and I'm currently working as an associate in Deloitte USA. I have a master's degree in economics from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Delhi. So I mean, most of the things have already been covered. So just to reiterate what both you mentioned and Gurushri also mentioned about the subsidies, right? In your PPT, you mentioned that there needs to be subsidies need to be targeted, and I feel like it's very essential that we talk about and discuss the merits and demerits of such subsidies. It's no secret that since 1991, the infrastructural transformation has been quite subdued. And despite having abundant low-skilled laborers, we haven't been able to generate that much of an employment in that particular sector, right? Democratic pressure did create some sort of limited protections in a form of public distribution system at Rega, but over the years, we have been seeing the allocations to these schemes have been quite inadequate. And they haven't really translated into into investments into core public or merit goods. So that's, I feel, one of the downfall that we have for these kind of subsidies. And the welfare state has kind of transitioned into something that economist Rathin Rao terms as compensatory state. And not to forget, like you all mentioned, they do carry a lot of fiscal burden as well. If I can recall it correctly, for this FY only, the actual expenditure on subsidies exceeded by some 5 lakh crores than the budgeted amount. So I mean, it's a lot of huge fiscal impact on our country, right? So in closing, I'd say there has to be consensus on economic growth and institutional growth path, and subsidies rather should be targeted on developing the human capital of our country rather than just giving out freebies that really doesn't translate into some core public or merit goods. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, let me just respond to.
I just want to say one thing, that the subsidies there are those that are social subsidies that are meant to target those who cannot afford various kinds of minimum requirements. And then there are subsidies, economic subsidies given to, say fertilizer subsidies. Even in the food sector, there are subsidies that are totally unnecessary. So there's that differentiation too. Just a point.
Okay. All right. Let me just respond to 2 points from Gurushri. First, it's not just a manifesto, it's also an attempt to have a discussion around structure. Okay. So it's more than just a manifesto. It is a manifesto, but the point of the manifesto is to have something that people can discuss. As you said, there's no Niti Aayog doesn't put out any such document. Nobody puts out a document that actually people can discuss around. So part of it is that we need something which people can understand and discuss and agree or disagree with. So that's that. Okay. And on the index, there are 2 things that I think have not been adequately studied and written up in the economics literature, and both because those are not key issues in Western countries. Okay. And that is the equality of opportunity and subsidies. The word subsidy you'll probably not even find in an economics textbook, because the assumption is that it's just a tax with a minus sign in front of it. Why do we need to analyze subsidies? Because we can just study taxes and put a minus sign and we have the answer. So there's no textbook I find in which there is a chapter in fiscal policy or a section in fiscal policy on subsidies. And that is a severe lack of understanding, which is, I want to trigger discussion about it. I want to have theoretical analysis of it, and I want to have empirical analysis of it, and not just by the union government, state by state. Also, the equality of opportunity, I agree. Any index is flawed. But remember that when Kuznets was asked to describe the whole economy, he created the GDP, which we all know is flawed, but nevertheless, it rules the world. So all the inflation indices we know are flawed, but we use them, right? Everybody knows the flaws of all the CPIs, of whatever type of CPI you get. And when you try to get something that's not so flawed, you get something that nobody understands, right? If you look at what the Fed looks at, then it takes 3 sentences to describe what the Fed looks at. So there's a problem with any index. But still, we need, if we cannot get an index, we need to at least get a qualitative discussion of what equality of opportunity means. What you mentioned, it encompasses so many things. We need a good list of what it encompasses. We need people to say that, look, these are the 7 things that matter at this stage in equality of opportunity. These are the 4 things that matter at this stage. Even a qualitative understanding is missing. And if not an understanding, a discussion is missing. We look at it piecemeal by piecemeal. But I'm trying to put it together under one umbrella term, that we don't just discuss nutrition, we don't just discuss health, we don't just discuss education, because what is the overall outcome of all this is that a person doesn't have the equality of opportunity, right? Cannot move up because either you were not healthy, you didn't get a good education, you didn't get this, you didn't get that, your caste was wrong, your religion was wrong, your gender was wrong. Equality of opportunity, therefore, is missing for you. So we need a list of these factors so that at least we can begin to think about what has to be done. And we don't have too much time, we need to get action thinking. Not that I have done the thinking, I haven't done the thinking, and I'm probably too old to do the thinking, but at least I can set the agenda as to where I think the 2 things that we really don't have analysis and discussion of is, we tend to have a political discussion of freebies, but freebies is a meaningless term to an economist. And that's why I wrote the short note on subsidy Raj, that listen, if you are going to have an economic model that requires politically that or socially that you subsidize a lot of people, then that is going, people say, well, you know, in Karnataka election, can the new government meet the subsidies from its budget? The answer is obviously yes, because it's going to squeeze something else out of the budget and you aren't looking at what is squeezed out. And that what is squeezed out is what leads to economic growth. So you are trading, you're just pushing the burden of reduced economic growth on the future generation. So all this discussion should take place, and you don't find it in the textbooks. So you don't find it being taught. And since there are no articles or things written on it, because still the publication tends to be Western oriented, you don't get that discussion at all. It's just a political discussion on subsidies is basically what you get, not a clear economic discussion. Now, I'm not in any position to do it, but I want the young people to think about it, and I want it to be spread. And so that's where some of these issues are, that what's a puzzle to me, I want to put forward. Say, it's a puzzle to me. I don't know, but we need to know. So that is part of that. And I will not get into the global pollution debate because I just, you know, it is something that requires a separate discussion. But I just want to say a few things about what I, in my capacity with people and who in Upanita was involved in briefly, we are trying to develop MSMEs in tier 3 cities of India. And that is, tier 3 means population of 1 lakh or so. And we have targeted 3 states, West Bengal, Rajasthan, and Odisha. And in those 3 states, 3 towns. Our flagship now is Shuri in West Bengal. I'm using the Bengali pronunciation. In the Hindi pronunciation, it's Suri. But you have to talk Bengali. So Shuri is the capital of Birbhum district. My team has made 3 visits there. Last visit was in September. And on 11th of October, I will have a video with the person who went there, happens to be my older brother. So he went there the basic idea there is to assess the local opportunities and the local hurdles, and to bring state, national, and international resources to help the local people overcome those resources. So we will not be doing the work so much as catalyzing the work, take advantage. And you hear of the government schemes, and there are plenty of government schemes to help the MSMEs, union and state. But when you go and talk to the MSMEs, you find, especially the small and micro, they are not able to take advantage. So we will try to help them. So that's the practical side. But the rest of it, I want a discussion, and we've had the discussion. Whether I agree or disagree is not the point. The point is to have a focus on which we can have a discussion. Okay, so with that, let's open it up for anybody who wants to say anything. You just
Can I
go
go
ahead.
ahead?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur. Thank you, Gurushri, and thank you, everybody else. So basically, as I told before also, so instead of just probably relying on the government and what the government wants to do, has it been just achieving the goals that it has set and all of that. I am a person who believes in learning by doing, and I believe in action. So like as my previous, like whatever I said before also, so I am someone who would probably just go out and try to bridge the gap between the policy makers and what that is being implemented, because honestly, we as the youth, we as Indians, I think we have a lot of potential which is probably unexplored, untapped, and which if we can probably utilize, can just we can fulfill these goals and these problems to a great extent. So like, be it like where we introduced the study buddy concept back in the slums, or probably where we used to like clean the slums regularly, or probably we used to conduct financial literacy sessions in collaboration with different banks back in the slums in West Bengal. I would probably suggest that since I've seen like a lot of students here are like, I think Akash and Parama are from Bengal as well, and Smit and Samarth, I think are from different parts. And like, I think it is a good suggestion if we could just put in 10% of what we do in our daily lives, because the like I think every micro problem just accumulates to form a macro issue, which probably governments out there cannot solve individually, even with the resources, even with the power. Probably they have a lot of power and everything, but I think there is something which probably lies at the micro level, which if it is not solved at the micro level, will never kind of translate, like it will just translate into a macro problem, honestly. So that's how I think we can put in our like minimum efforts so that at least we could, just as Professor Mathur said, like we are working in Shuri and probably in a lot of other places in India where like I think you were studying about MSMEs in other places as far as I remember. So I think like even in the slums where I used to work in back in Calcutta, back in India. So we used to empower these women so that they could kind of generate some income for themselves, because otherwise what we realized that their children would just drop out of the schools, which is also being run by another woman who is just doing it voluntarily without any support, and the teachers are also just given bare minimum wage of 1,000. So we as students, we came and we started tutoring these kids, and then we probably empowered these women. We used to conduct these health camps and everything so that these small problems could be solved. And like I still remember there was this problem where there was like one probably uh tap where then which the entire slum used to share, and that once that tap is just not it stopped working, and apparently there was no water in the entire slum, and that problem just was there for months. And what we decided, we just came up with the solution that we could probably have some like social entrepreneurship challenges where students could at least develop some like ideas so that there is like constant water supply in these slums, and in such a way we could honestly generate a lot of innovative thinking. We could generate probably small ideas which could solve bigger problems, which would probably translate into solving the problems of these underprivileged people, and also in a way kind of generate, like if we could do this in a massive scale, probably this could be a source of employment, or probably we could do this like make this as a big social venture so that other students and other people with from different places, they could also collaborate and it could generate some income for them as well. So I think, trust me, instead of just blaming people or probably blaming the government, or I'm sure the government has a lot of power and there are a lot of institutional inefficiencies which lie at every level. But I think if we could just put in that 2% effort of our daily lives, all the unofficial goals which we want to kind of put in, like achieve, they would
I
be.
want to say something to you. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Huh?
Upanita.
Upanita.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Upanita. Okay. You know, the point is there is a role for NGOs for the kind of work you're doing, and but on the scale, there's a question of scaling. I mean, how these are all, even the Shura or Shura thing that Subodh's brother is doing, just how many of those do you think you can create? So
60 towns in 5 years, Gurushri, 60 towns in 5 years.
Yeah, but I think there are
That's
about
the target for us, 60 towns in 5
target. Okay.
years.
But what I'm saying is that you cannot build a railway on with the effort. You cannot build infrastructure with that kind of effort. There is a role for the public sector where taxes are used to create infrastructure, it's social infrastructure, and so on. And these days, one doesn't get much information about what is going on there. I worked on Africa for many, many years. And it was the same issue. You see, the government would misspend money, and people, very poor people, they could not get even the basic services. And this is true And so they had to somehow find their own way of finding, some ways of meeting their needs. And that's where the NGOs and even the World Bank came in to some extent. But it's huge. I mean, India is a huge country. You cannot, I'm nothing against NGOs by all means. And also if it gives you a good kick, that, emotionally and so on, that's good too. But there is a limit. There's a limit to what NGOs can do.
Yeah, let me just address that, because
Okay.
we have begun to talk about implementation, and I tried not to talk about implementation because my idea is to first write the goals and then talk about the implementation. So it's not just going to be goals that I write about, but still, since we are talking about implementation, Gurushri saying what NGOs can't do. So I have now this symbol hand. Okay, we need 5 things. The union government, I don't call government. There's no such thing as the government. We have the union government, we have the state governments, we have Panchayati Raj. These are constitutional bodies, and the constitutional bodies must do their constitutional function. Okay,
Mm.
they should be efficient and they should do it. Panchayati Raj, to my knowledge, PRI, Panchayati Raj institutions are doing next to nothing. Okay. It's a serious gap that needs to be overcome. So we have the 3 constitutional authorities that must do their job. And then we have the municipal government, which is not a constitutional job and is therefore very much under the thumb of the chief minister, and therefore tends to not do a good job at all. And some method must be found of getting the city municipal authorities back so that they can actually do their job. And the last is what I now call as the non-profit institutions, because I find the term NGO is outdated. There was a time when their focus was that we are not the government, but I think the time has come to think that we are not for profit.
Yeah, fine.
So the 5th is the non-profit institutions. And unless, in 2019, I wrote the slogan that it's not the PM alone, it's the PM plus the CMs. But now I've broadened it to 5. Okay, we need all 5. And by the way, Gurushri, the union government is doing a good job of building highways now. Undeniably a good job is the one thing that I do praise, that they are doing a great job of building highways. India is changing, and you can find it written up even in normal accounts.
Yeah.
And on
Yeah,
the
I've read
railways,
about
they think they are doing a good job, but they are severely budget constrained because of the double subsidy that the railways pays. 1, they subsidize passengers. 2, they subsidize their workers. The employees are subsidized and the passengers are subsidized. The net result is that the railways have on operating costs, a surplus of 2%, or not even that. Sometimes it's negative. So they have no capital of their own to expand. They are quite smart these days, I must say. They are thinking that freight is the future. And indeed, freight is the future. And so we have a dedicated freight corridor coming up. And the railways are trying to do as good a job as they can, but they are severely constrained, and even the highways are constrained. And they are constrained when the union minister for highways says, oh, we are not fund constrained. Whenever a union minister denies something, that it's a topic for discussion, and the only reason the minister is denying it, because that's what's happening. So he did deny that, no, I'm not fund constrained, but the thing is that he is fund constrained. The railways are terribly fund constrained and simply cannot. The problem is that you cannot improve the track. You cannot get higher speed till you have better track, and the track in India is old. You look at Pakistan, their track is so gone that the trains can't even move. So at least we are not there. They need $10 billion to upgrade the track. We are not there, but our track is not good enough for higher speed. But with those 2 points of infrastructure, I would say is highways for sure. India is doing a good job now. We are nowhere close to world class. Our safety measures on the highway is just terrible. But anyway, Samarth, thank you for you coming. And so good to hear you. So
Thank you.
yes,
Thanks a lot.
we do need the central government, the state union government and the state governments, but ultimately the local problems, it's very hard for a state government to put out a uniform plan that works in every part. And the nimble NGOs have to do that bit. Then I should call the nimble NPI. So that's coming to implementation, which I'm really not ready to discuss yet, but since a lot of the focus has shifted to implementation, that is my idea on that. Okay, I think anybody else wants to have some comments? Otherwise, I think it's been very fruitful and we should end it soon. Akash, any last words?
Yes, sir. I would like to just add one thing. I think Smith probably asked this question that when India has avoided that proper manufacturing phase, should we go for an advanced manufacturing phase or not? So I would like to say here is that yes, we can go for an advanced manufacturing phase, but the thing is that we still don't have our basics right. For example, like sir, you mentioned that the tracks in Indian railway tracks are absolutely not up to the mark. And we had seen that Vande Bharat was introduced. It was a high-speed railway. It was supposed to be very high speed and a lot of things. But when we see what is the average speed of Vande Bharat, it's around 75 to 80 kilometers per hour. That's the average speed. We're not talking about the highest speed. That can be very high. It's all right. But till the date, the tracks are not well.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. How is it going to work? And
the theoretical speed is 180,
yeah.
but the maximum it actually runs is 120. And as Akash said, in practice, average speed, well, average speed, you can, not really use it to discredit, because, once you move out of the railway station, you are still going to be slow, unless you are electric, which has high torque. But otherwise, you're going to be slow. But still, yes, we can't run the Vande Bharat at the speed at which it is supposed to run. I did mention the problem of tracks. Yes. So go ahead.
And also, we had seen that we had that bullet train project that we were supposed to connect two cities, and it was supposed to be, very advanced and modern. But right now, if we see that there are many problems in that process also, the land acquisition problems and then many problems. Again, not the proper implementation of the plan. The kind of budget that the bullet train project had taken in, we could have used it in a very better purpose. We could have changed a lot of tracks, and we could have taken a small steps. Like the current speed is very low. We could have upgraded to maybe a 120 or 140, and then we could have gone for maybe a 200 and 300 kilometers per hour. But you cannot just skip that one part. It has to be, the basic has to be done, covered, and that's what I feel, that we have to do the basics first. First the basic manufacturing sector, and then only with a gradual process, with a long-term plan, we can go to the advanced manufacturing sector and advanced plans and so on. So that's all.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Gurushri also has to leave. So let's end it here. It's been very, very helpful and productive. And we'll come back and have some thing like this on my goal number 2 also. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now. Okay. Bye-bye.